are at West Fork Whiskey, learning about how they make their Indiana whiskey with some Indiana corn. And I'm here with Dave, one of the co-founders of the whiskey distillery, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his background, how he got into the business, and where they're headed today with some Indiana bourbon and Indiana whiskey.
Yeah, so we got into it. It's going on about 6 years now, really, is when we first started production. We were kind of dumb young kids who wanted to try something different. We all had our own careers going, but loved whiskey on our own terms, and the craft movement was just starting at that point. And we said, let's give it a shot. So we maxed out our credit cards, cashed out our 401ks, and got a small facility on the north side of Indianapolis near Traders Point, and started nights and weekends, really. And from the beginning, though, we always wanted to really concentrate on corn.
In corn whiskey in particular, like
our first whiskey we ever made was corn whiskey.
Okay.
And we don't make vodka, we don't make gin, so all we make is whiskeys. And we've always said Indiana's known for making great corn.
That's right.
You know, as you know, we ship a ton of corn to Kentucky to make their bourbons.
Exactly.
We obviously have all of the great resources here to make quality whiskey as well. So again, no vodka, no gin. So we started out with just a few mash bills, all of which were very heavy on the corn side.
Okay.
From 100% corn whiskey, which is literally just nothing but corn, to some very high corn mash bills for bourbon. And then finally with our rye whiskey that's really high in corn content, as much as it can be, essentially.
To still be a rye.
To still be a rye whiskey. So we've always concentrated on that, and over the last 5-6 years we've grown and grown and grown, and moved to this facility in 2017, and now we're sold in upwards of 12 states through our Old Hamer line, which is a 99% corn product, all from Indiana as well. So it's been a fun ride for sure, and our next step is we're building a 35,000 square foot facility in Westfield with a restaurant, event center, 16,000 square feet of production, and plenty of corn going through there.
That's amazing. So you went from maxing out your credit cards, taking from your 401k, finding some farmers to sell you some corn, and a hope and a dream. So you guys didn't have a background where you were making spirits for other people. It was more like we watched some videos, we read some books, we talked to some experts, and we just dove headfirst in and boom.
Well, our third co-founder has a very science background.
That helps.
He has an undergrad in biochem, a master's in biology, and we actually yanked him out of his third year of med school to start this with us. And so he's always been our science wing, and we certainly had a lot of trial and error, that's for sure. But after about 6 months, we had kind of gotten things dialed in on a very small system, and we got some really great feedback on the distillate we were producing.
Okay.
And that's when we knew, hey, let's reinvest in this thing and take it to the next level.
Amazing. So talk to me about, where did you go to get your corn at first? I mean, are you guys got farm connections? I mean, I realize Indiana's a farm state.
Yep.
But if you're not on a farm, how did you know where to go to get the corn?
Luckily, around that same time, the craft spirits movement was starting, but the craft beer industry had already been going very strong for quite some time in Indiana. And there was a small farmer who was kind of starting his own business for breweries and distilleries called Sugar Creek Malt Company. And from him, he's been our connection from day one to get us certainly all the locally sourced corn, but including locally sourced rye and wheat, all from Indiana, which is remarkable. We're not known for rye, especially. We've always got it all from Indiana, so it's pretty special.
Beautiful thing about farm country is, sure, we don't normally grow rye, but it doesn't mean we can't.
Exactly.
And so I love that you guys are using all the inputs and working with farmers to grow all those inputs to be raised locally. So you're just using traditional, regular field corn in this. It's not white corn, it's not something special.
We do some specialties from time to time. Like we have a Oaxacan green corn that's aging, some Bloody Butcher corn that's aging as well. But for our standard everyday mash bills, it's just standard number 2 dent.
Okay, perfect. So talk to me about how you started, because you guys started with small barrels.
Yes.
Your line was small barrel, and now you're moving and growing and expanding into a more traditional. Talk about that, start and your transition.
We decided to make it as hard on ourselves as possible by not making any other spirit other than whiskey, and whiskey obviously takes time other than a moonshine type product. So in the beginning, our best course of action was to use small format barrels. With those, you get more surface contact with the wood. Therefore, you get those oaky characteristics and dark color faster. But it is certainly a different type of whiskey when compared to a 4, 5, 6-year-old bourbon from Kentucky that's aged in the large-scale 53-gallon cask.
Yeah.
So about 3 years ago, we made the switch. We completely stopped using small format barrels and started putting back whiskey for the long term in the large format barrels. And finally, in the next couple of months, we'll be launching that product that's been aged for a substantial amount of time in large format barrels by the end of the year. So we're extremely excited about that.
All right, so when these barrels you're tapping are ready, is it all going to be the same type of whiskey, or do you have different varieties within that? Because I realize there's different ages of whiskey, so you'll be tapping barrels as time goes on. But what are these barrels you're going to tap? Same variety or different?
They'll all be bourbon, that's for sure. That's been our major focus. We realized long ago that we had much better yields off our high corn mash bills than our rye.
Corn farmers love to hear that.
Yeah, so we focus heavily on those mash bills, and there's 3 different ones we focus on. One is a very heavy corn, it's 88% corn,
Okay.
and then 2 others that are around 70 to 75% corn. The difference between those 2 is one's a wheated high wheat mash bill, and the other's a high rye mash bill. So those are our focus. Again, 3 different bourbon mash bills, and that's what we're going to be seeing coming out of these large format barrels here shortly.
All right, so when you tap those barrels coming out this winter, will those bourbons be available to the public outside of this tasting room?
Still just here.
Okay.
So in preparation for our Westfield facility,
Yep.
we kind of have to hold back as much product as we can
I get it.
because we're going from a 500 square foot small tasting room to, again, 35,000 square
Right.
foot facility
Right,
right
huge.
across from Grand Park. So we plan to see quite a few people up there and go through a lot of product.
Amazing. So you're putting a lot of corn in. For those that are bourbon lovers or spirit lovers, even beer lovers, they know that you've got spent grain, distilled grains that come out. What do you do with that? In the movement of all the climate conversation, sustainability, I'm assuming you guys have figured out how to make this full circle and not just have that be a waste product. So talk about
Yes.
all of your distiller grains and where that's going.
Yeah, thankfully we've been able to secure relationships with some local farmers, and specifically pig farmers has been where we found our niche. And we provide it to them at 0 cost. It's infinitely better for us to do that than
Right.
add it to a landfill.
Agreed.
It might be good for the landfill to have it, but it's probably better to give it back and
Well,
have it go through.
To have it be able to produce another food item
Absolutely.
is a positive thing. So how much are you getting out of a facility this size, and how much will you be getting as you grow?
Like I said, we're doing between 8,000 and 10,000 pounds of grain a week here, and at our new facility, that'll be exponentially higher. We're moving to a much larger system, so we'll probably be in the range of 50,000 pounds of grain a week would be my guess, somewhere in that ballpark. So we're going to be securing with more farmers, that's for sure.
That's amazing. So help me understand how much grain it takes to get 1 bottle of whiskey bourbon. Like, is this 10 pounds of corn? Have you ever done that math? I'm a dairy person, so I'm like, 10 pounds of milk gets you 1 pound of cheese. Do you guys know, or how much does it take to go into a barrel?
Yeah, I mean, to go into a barrel, it's never exact, but our standard mashes now are generally between 1,500 and 1,600 pounds, and from 1 mash, we're generally getting around 1.5 barrels to 2 barrels.
Okay.
So you kind of do that math.
impressive. Yeah.
Each barrel, depending on the proof, is going to make 40 to 50 cases, 6-pack cases. So the math can be done there. I'm not smart enough to do it off the top of my head right now.
But I just want people to understand the volume it takes of Indiana corn, Indiana wheat, Indiana rye to get 1 bottle.
And just how distillation works, because
Right.
we essentially make beer first.
Absolutely.
We
Before
have
you
a
age it.
600-gallon system here, and we take that 600 gallons, we get 10 to 15% of that turned into spirits.
Right.
So our yields are very small. It's a very difficult game to get into, and understand that it takes a whole lot of grain and water
Absolutely.
and time
Yeah.
to get a very small amount of liquid.
And I think it's interesting that as you make bourbon in particular, that you actually start with beer.
Yep. Yeah, ours doesn't taste as good.
No,
as
because
you would
that's
find
not your
elsewhere.
goal.
Right.
But it's technically, that's what's at before you start putting it into
Yeah,
barrels.
more tastes like a corn porridge with some booze in it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
but yeah, it ends up making a very quality spirit in the end.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having us out today. It's
Absolutely.
great learning about your whiskey company, and we look forward to visiting you up in Westfield.
Absolutely. Thank you guys very much.